Hello everyone, this has been a long time in the making. Today, we are finally doing Pokemon Leafgreen with Smeargle. For those of you wondering why this is a long time in the making, you should go check out my first ever collaboration with Steve M Plays, fellow content creator. It's the full-length video we made where, on my channel, we raced each other with Cloyster in Pokemon Blue vs Leafgreen, and on his channel, Slowbro. So go check those out if you haven't already. Anyway, the reason I'm doing Smeargle is because in one of those two races, I can't remember which one, I lost since Leafgreen is obviously slower than Blue, so I had to do a punishment. And the punishment was Smeargle in Pokemon Leafgreen, and here we are. So let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Smeargle is a really gimmicky Pokemon. It only learns one move by level up, and it is Sketch. However, it gets the move 10 times, starting at 1, and then every 10 levels up to level 91. So what does Sketch do, you may ask? Well, curious person in the comment section, Sketch is a move kind of like Transform or Mimic, except it permanently copies the last move used by the opponent. So for example, if the opponent uses Tackle, and I use Sketch on the next turn, it will permanently copy Sketch. Like, Sketch is no longer on my moveset, I just have Tackle. While this can be used to get some really good moves, you have to make sure that the opponent uses the move first. If you're faster than the opponent, it can be a bit difficult at times to get the move you want. Plus, since we learn it every 10 levels, and a Pokemon cannot have 2 copies of the same move at the same time, if we don't use our Sketch before the next level up, we're not going to be able to learn it, and that will be a problem. So I can't just save all my Sketches, I gotta use them as fast as I can. Anyway, you may be thinking right now, oh, this isn't going to be that hard, just get some good moves like Flamethrower and Thunderbolt. Well, let me tell you about its base stats. It has a base stat total of 250, 55 HP, 20 in the attack stats, 35 in defense, 45 in special defense, 75 speed. So the speed is actually quite decent, but its offensive capabilities are just downright poor. Even if we get some very powerful moves, we're not going to be doing that much damage. So we're going to have to plan our movesets very carefully. And also, if we take a real quick look at our leaderboards, I can pretty much guarantee you we are not getting the top 10. Those times are taken up by Pokemon like Celebi, Mew, Slowbro, the Johto Beast, Chimecho for some reason. So let's look at the bottom 5. The bottom 5, we have Poochyena, Shroomish, Swinub, Shedinja, and Wobbuffet. I don't think it's going to get Shedinja levels. I could possibly see that, but I think we've carried on long enough. Let's get into the run. Before we do anything else, let's take a look at the first rival battle. Unfortunately, since I outspeed the Charmander, yeah, I do have perfect speed, but here's the thing, even if I set myself to 0 IV sin speed, I am still going to outspeed the Charmander, since 75 base speed is higher than Charmander's base speed. So we're pretty much going to have to struggle this fight, but luckily we win, so at least we get some experience. Also, speaking of experience, we're going to be gaining it quite fast throughout the run. We're actually in the fast level up group. But believe it or not, in the early game, it's actually the second best. Because if you look at this chart right here, medium slow is actually the fastest in terms of experience needed to get to the next level, from level 1 to level 30. And then from level 30 onwards, fast is actually the fastest, until around the much higher levels like low 70s where erratic becomes faster, but let's just ignore that for now. So basically, since we're going to be leveling up quite fast, we're also going to be getting the next opportunity to learn Sketch very, very quickly. So we're going to need to use Sketch on something, and since I couldn't use it on the rival fight, who am I going to Sketch off of? Simple, I go to a wild Pidgey, I throw a Pokeball, hope it fails to catch, and then when it fails, it'll go for Tackle, which is its only move, and then I can Sketch Tackle. So here's the thing with my rule set, I can only use Pokeballs in battle. So without moves to stall, throwing a Pokeball is like the only way I can stall. This is basically a little loophole in my rule set, but we'll just worry about that when the time comes. Once I arrive in Viridian City, I buy some pokeballs and some potions and some antidotes and paralyze heals, and then the first thing I do is go train up in the Viridian Forest. The main plan is to defeat all of the bug catchers right here so I can get to level 11 to get my next move to Sketch. Because here's the thing, I am not going to be able to take on Brock with Tackle, so we need to be able to sketch another move as soon as possible. And what will that move be? Well, as you can see here, by the time I leave the forest and defeat the final bug catcher, I am at level 11 and I have Sketch. So I go to the Pewter City Pokemon Center, heal up, and then I backtrack all the way to Viridian City, where I go take on the optional rival battle. Because since my rival has Charmander, my plan is to sketch Ember off of its moveset. So let's get into battle. He starts off with his level 9 Pidgey, and I send out Smeargle. Tackle does more than half thanks to a crit, but then Pidgey responds in kind with its own crit, and then I get hit with a sand attack before going down. And now is the Charmander. This thing does not have Ember? What the? Okay, what in the hell? That is not what Bulbapedia told me. For those of you wondering why I'm upset all of a sudden, here's the thing. Here's the screenshot I took on Bulbapedia when I was routing this run. It said that the optional rival here had Ember. I mean, normally a level 9 Charmander does, but in the game, they actually coded it so the rival wouldn't have that to take it a bit easy on the player. Because at that point, like, you would have your own, like, Vine Whip or Bubble, but he wouldn't yet. So, all because of a lie, I'm no longer able to do my old strategy of sketching Ember and using that to take out Brock. So I'm going to need a completely different plan. And while I think of this plan, I'm just going to go around and train on wild Pokemon because I need to be a high level for Brock anyway, even with my old strategy. I needed to be around level 20. In the area I'm choosing to do all the training is all of the early routes before Brock. Because here's the thing, a huge majority of the Pokemon here actually gives speed EVs. And in the champion fight, in order for me to outspeed fast Pokemon like the Alakazam and the Charizard at the level I want to be at, my minimum amount of EVs would need to be in the 140s or 150s. And since I'm doing all this training, I will definitely get there. So let me just skip ahead a little bit to where I'm level 15 and I'm trying to defeat the Light Years Junior Trainer for experience. I actually realized that I would not be able to defeat his lead Geodude, but then I had an idea. I'm going to sketch Defense Curl. Why am I going to sketch Defense Curl? Well, on Brock, I can use my own Defense Curl to make sure that his Pokemon do as little damage as possible. I'm not going to be doing much damage to them, so I need to outlive them. And come on, there's literally nothing else good in the early game. And I have Sketch right now. If I have to train to level 20, I'll be one level away from Sketch, and if I still have it, I'm not going to be able to learn it, so I had to get rid of it as soon as possible. And then once I sketch Defense Curl, I just black out and heal at the Pokemon Center, which I'm totally allowed to do. It doesn't count as a reset, by the way, because in my opinion, blacking out, it still adds to your game time, you get to keep the levels, and you still lost the money. So it's still counted in the process of the run. I only count resets like you're actually shutting off and on the system. That's what I count as a reset. So let's just speed up a bit and just get straight to level 20 where I can first take on Brock. He starts off with his Geodude and I send out Smeargle. Tackle's doing like 2 or 3 damage I'd say, but thanks to that Defense Curl it's pretty much only going to do 1 damage, so I use the opportunity to set up my own Defense Curls. Because the goal is basically to get the Geodude to do as little damage as possible, while I'm basically doing as little damage as possible. But since I have more health than they do, I could probably outlive them, so let's see. This fight though doesn't go exactly as I planned it. I mean, I do defeat the Geodude, but I'm at like 7 hit points left. And then on the Onix, I use 1 tackle. Rock Tomb only did 3 damage, so if I got a bit luckier on the Geodude, my plan theoretically could have worked, but it didn't today. On the second attempt, the Geodude actually knocks me out. Another backup plan I thought of is what if I use Struggle, because Struggle does typeless damage in Gen 3, so maybe I could hit them with neutral damage, which will be far more powerful. So I basically just drain all but 3 of my defense curls, so that way I can still set up my defense a little bit, and then I can immediately set up struggle. So why don't we see how this strategy fares out. On his Geodude, I immediately start off by using my 3 defense curls, and the Geodude only attacked me once for 2 damage. And then I notice, even with 2 defense curls, this struggle is doing more damage than a tackle without a defense curl, so this was definitely the right answer. But with the Geodude down, I'm at way more health for the Onix, so let's see how the Onix goes. However, unfortunately, I planned things very poorly, and when I level up and get to the Onix, it learned Sketch. So now, I am no longer in struggle, and I'm worried about wasting a Sketch. But luckily, since I outspeed, the Sketch fails, and I am back to using struggle. So with me back to using struggle, it does like an 1/8, I'd say, and the Rock Tombs and its other moves are doing like no damage. However, I would like to say, his most damaging move is honestly the in-between turns where Bind actually does damage. Like, it does the 1 damage on the start, but then every turn it deals like a 1/16 of your HP, I believe. So this was cutting it really close, but luckily, I got a Rock Tomb miss, I'm freed from Bind, and I live on 1 hit point left, and I actually beat Brock on the first try with the struggle strat. And it only took over 50 minutes of real time. That's not too bad. I mean, I can't complain. I've had a lot worse. Just go watch my Shedinja Wobbuffet race. Shedinja's Brock split was like 2.5 hours. As I go through the Route 3 trainers, let me just talk about the situation we're in. We're at a very high level. We're like 11 levels higher than like the opponent Caterpie and Weedle, but Tackle is only 2-shotting them. That's how bad Smeargle's attack is. But I will say, Brock's badge does give us a 10% boost to our attack stats, so that definitely means for now, physical attacks are going to be a bit more powerful, but still, we're hardly doing any damage. At least compared to anything else. Like, I think a level 21 Rattata with Tackle would kill these things in 1 hit faster, because Rattata actually has quite decent attack for this point in the game. I also defeat every single trainer on Route 3, even youngster Calvin with the Spearow, who I almost never fight, and then I enter Mount Moon. You may be seeing sketches on my moveset since I leveled up on the Brock battle, so what will I be copying? Well, it's actually going to be quite a decent move. I'm actually going to go fight the Super Nerd here. His name is Super Nerd Jovan, and he has a level 11 Magnemite with Thundershock. I'm going to be copying Thundershock to help with Misty and a bunch of early game flying types. So as soon as I get it to use it by stalling with Tackle and Defense Curl, I can sketch Thundershock and then take care of the rest of his team quite easily. I also get the rare candy in here. I'm pretty much going to be getting every rare candy, so if I forget to mention it, there's a good chance I picked it up. Oh, also, I am going to be doing something in Mount Moon that I almost never do. I am going to be looking for some mushrooms in the first floor of the cave. It's basically the floor with the long hallways to the ladders. This floor has a 100% spawn of Paris, and they are holding mushrooms. The thing is, I need to go to the Move Relearner on Sevi Island 2 twice throughout the run. This is so I can relearn Sketch and avoid like 20 levels worth of training. So it's definitely going to be worth it. While I was down here, I did find a big mushroom. It's not a guaranteed one either. The mushrooms down there are randomly spawning and unspawning every 256 steps you take in an area. So it's quite random if they'll be there or not. I was just lucky that one was there. The original plan was to just catch a bunch of Paris holding the mushrooms. I can tell if they are because my overlay shows this. And then once I get either 4 tiny shrooms, 2 big ones, or 1 big and 2 tinies, because that's what the guy charges for the mushrooms. Like in modern games, he charges heart scales, but in this game, he charges mushrooms because there are no love disc in this game, so you really wouldn't have a good way of getting heart scales. Anyway, I'm pretty much rambling. Let's just skip to the end of the cave. I picked the Helix Fossil because it's the fastest, and then I make it to Cerulean City. I heal at the center, get the backyard rare candy, and the first thing I do is take on Rival 2. He starts off with Pidgeotto, and I start off with a Thundershock, which does way less than half. But luckily, I don't get hit with any sand attacks, and I can take it out and move on to his Rattata, which deals a decent bit of damage with a critical hit quick attack, and Tackle looked like it was going to 2-hit, but the second Tackle got a very bad roll, so I didn't end up knocking it out. Okay, the final Pokemon is Charmander. I used Tackle to deal about a third, but unfortunately its Ember is doing so much damage at this point, and I get a reset. On the next attempt, I get into the Charmander with one Sand Attack up, and I get knocked out. Yet again. Alright, and definitely third time is not the charm. Even though I didn't get hit with a Sand Attack, I am at way too low of health for the Charmander, so yeah, this fight is definitely becoming irritating. I mean, even if the Pidgeotto doesn't use a Sand Attack, which itself is a miracle on its own, his normal types can do some quite decent damage with Quick Attack. In my original planning, I did think of mimicking Quick Attack, or sketching it in this case, but it just wasn't going to be worth it in the end since I need to use my sketches on more important moves. And then when I finally make it to the Charmander, I use a Tackle and it gets a critical hit doing more than half. It only goes for Tackle and I misclicked and go for Tackle again, and then it missed, and then luckily the Charmander really didn't do that much, so I use one Thundershock to do a little bit of chip damage, I miss a Thundershock, and I finally knock it out. That was lucky. I did get hit with one Sand Attack during the fight, and luckily it didn't mess me up too many times. I mean, it's messing me up right now on the Abra, but it's an Abra. What's it going to do to me? Normally, the Route 24 and 25 trainers are not threatening at all, but I will say right here, there's this youngster on the Nugget Bridge with a Sandshrew and an Ekans. His Sandshrew got off 3 Sand Attacks, and my only move against it is Tackle, and Sandshrew has quite high defense. So by the time I defeated and got to the Ekans, I kept missing almost all of my moves. It was able to poison me and take me out. And since I hadn't saved since Rival 2 because this guy is generally never a threat, I had to let my entire team black out so I can heal up and start over. And after a couple of other trainers, I would take so much damage, like from getting poisoned, or getting hit with Double Kick, or Tackle, Quick Attack, Sand Attack. I basically have to go to the center after every 1 to 2 trainers. And then when I eventually have to choose to fight one of the hikers on Route 25, there's one with a Machop and a Geodude, and one with an Onix. I chose the one with the Onix because I figured its attack stat wasn't that good. I can probably take it out really quick. But the main problem is that since I can only use Tackle, its defense is super high. I only end up taking it down to around half, and then I get knocked out by the Onix. And I did save before this luckily, so I can just reset back to it. So instead, I actually decide to fight the Machop Geodude guy instead. Cause even though the Geodude has more attack, at least it doesn't have as much defense. Although it is basically just going to spam Defense Curl whenever it feels like it, so it may not be lower per se, but I mean, at the start, I can do more damage, but I'm definitely going to need to rely on critical hits here to win. And can I win on the first try? It's cutting it really close, but sadly, nope. Critical hit, Rock Throw. Of course it's going to be that move. On the next attempt, I ended up defeating the Geodude at 4 hit points left. You may be thinking if it was a better idea to save Sketch for one of Misty's gym trainers and copy Bubble or something, but in my opinion, I don't think it was because Thundershock was basically my key to quickly defeating the Pidgeotto on Rival 2, and if I let that Pidgeotto live long enough, every fight I'm in is going to have like 4 or 5 Sand Attacks, so I'm still pretty confident that Thundershock was worth it. And get this, I was trying to fight the Junior Trainer up here, or I guess not Junior Trainer, but Camper, wrong generation. Anyway, I was trying to defeat the Camper, but I moved one step too far to the left and I ended up challenging the hiker. I should have just reset, but I thought I could try and take him on anyway, but his Machop was doing way too much damage to me, so I need to fight this picnicker all over again. Not a big deal. Alright, so that's the last of all the Route 24-25 drama for this video. I rescue Bill, get the SS ticket, and then I can defeat the Team Rocket Grunt holding the TM for Dig, but unfortunately his Machop does quite a lot of damage to me, so I ended up resetting and trying again. And then after I healed up, I actually decided instead of trying him again, I should probably try Misty first because I'm level 28, which is the minimum level I needed to fight Misty in my notes. Mostly to outspeed her Pokemon, but I have 153 speed EVs. I could probably have done it at a lower level, but I'm sure the damage ranges were also a reason, so why don't we check out Misty and see how this goes. She starts off with her Staryu, and I, turn 1, go for Thundershock, dealing over half without a crit, so at least this Pokemon's pretty consistent. However, I don't think the Starmie's going to be half, and it looks like I'm right. And then it gets a critical hit Water Pulse, and then it uses Recover, I go for more Thundershocks, and another critical hit Water Pulse. What is this, Gen 1 with your 19.7% chance to crit? That's probably not it, but still. And then on the next attempt, I'm basically just spamming the ever-living heck out of Thundershock, and then luckily I get a critical hit, and it got it at really low health, and Starmie did not end up going for Recover. So luckily, since it was at low enough health, I can actually take it out with one last Thundershock, and I win on the second try. That was honestly not bad at all. And also, have you noticed I was holding a Persim Berry for this fight? I normally do it just in case the Starmie confuses me with Water Pulse. I completely forgot that Own Tempo existed, so I couldn't have been confused anyway, so that was honestly just a waste of an item slot. After I get my Cascade badge, I give it another attempt at the Rocket Grunt, the innocent bystander. I lose on my first attempt back at him, but then on my next attempt back, I am able to defeat his Pokemon on the second try. His Machop basically did the majority of the damage, and the Drowsy hardly did anything. Although if it did land a Hypnosis, it would have been really bad. When I get down to Route 6, I get the usual Citrus Berry and Rare Candy that I get in every run I do, but I think for this Pokemon specifically, these things are going to be absolutely needed. And then I defeat the 2 Picnicker and Campers guarding Vermilion with ease, and then I can enter the place, get the Versus Seeker just in case I need it, which I pretty much will in this run. And the first thing I do is actually go east to Route 11. I actually need to get to level 31 to sketch another move while I'm here, and I'm almost there. I'm level 30 and then some, so just a few trainers later, I get to level 31, and what will I be sketching? I will be going into Diglett's cave, finding a wild Diglett, and then I can sketch Dig. Dig in this game is a 60 base power move. It's not that good, but against Surge, it's going to be quite nice. And it's actually more powerful than Tackle, even if you include Stab, so it's going to be quite a decent move to carry us for a while. With Dig on my moveset, I actually take on every single trainer in the SS Sand for the experience because Smeargle cannot be put behind. Because until we get some very overpowered moves in the late game, our level is going to be a huge setback, especially with our stats. So once I defeat every single trainer, I can take on rival number 3. He sends out Pidgeotto, and I, turn 1, start with a Thundershock, and unlike Rival 2, it actually does more than half. But unfortunately, I do get hit with a Sand Attack, and then on the Raticate, I use Dig, it misses, it hits me with a Tail Whip, I go underground again, and I actually hit it to do around half, it hits me with another Tail Whip, and I hit it for the second Dig, and I defeat it. Now for the Kadabra, I use Dig again, and unfortunately I miss. Confusion doesn't do that much, so I'm still in the clear. Dig almost knocks it out, but not really. Now my accuracy is -2 because of the Kinesis. And now on the Charmeleon, I go for a Dig, please hit. Luckily it does, dealing 3/4, and Smokescreen lowers me to -3. And then I miss a Dig, get hit with Metal Claw, it activates my emergency Oran Berry, and then luckily I hit a Dig. And then I get off the SS Sand, watch the ship set off into the horizon, and then I can take on Lieutenant Surge. Do I even need to say it? His whole team was just spam dig, spam dig, spam dig twice on the Raichu. I mean, the Raichu did need 2 digs, but that thing is gonna survive a hit anyway. I am a Smeargle after all, where my attack stat is lower than my level. And I did have a Cherry Berry equipped for this fight, mostly for the static or for Thunder Wave. But it came into play on the Raichu when it went for Thunder Wave and the one turn it had to attack me when I was above ground, and luckily the Cherry Berry just ate it right up. And then when I'm back in Cerulean City, I heal at the Pokemon Center, get the bike, get the bike after remembering to get the bike voucher, and then I can go battle the Route 9 Rock Tunnel Gauntlet. Normally I'd say the trainers aren't that hard, but the first trainer, who's normally called the Rapping Lass because she likes to use rap with her Bellsprout, but having to use Dig and Tackle, it's a really slow fight, and they could poison me, meaning I'd be on a timer to like finish the match, but luckily the only status condition I get hit with is paralysis from Stun Spore. I end up winning this fight quite nicely. If I did get hit with poison, this would probably be a lot scarier. And now I heal at the Route 10 Pokemon Center, and now we're on the Rock Tunnel Gauntlet. This is probably one of the hardest, non-eventful places for Smeargle in the whole run. There's a lot of ground types in here, I can't use Thunder Shock, and there's also a lot of Geodudes, Gravelers, Onix, Machop in some places. Machop have given us a lot of problems in this run. And the Geodude and the Graveler I could use Dig on, but the problem is their defenses are quite high, and some of them have Magnitude, which if the opponent is underground, doubles in damage. So that will be a 90% death sentence. So I need to be really careful here. To be honest, this fight here wasn't really that hard, and neither is the next guy with just a single Slowpoke, so just an easier version of the first guy. But then after that is this Picnicker here. In Gen 1, she's referred to as the Status Condition Junior Trainer by Scott's Thoughts, and that's for a good reason. Her Oddish loves to set up status conditions. Luckily it wasn't poison, because here's the thing, even if it's sleep, all it can do is Sweet Scent. Like, that, what's that even gonna do? And then once I wake up, I use 2 tackles to knock it out, and now the Bulbasaur. I go for Tackle, it uses Poison Powder, but luckily it was far too late in the battle to have any impact, so I can just leave the battle with ease. But right here is going to be a sneak peek of the other hikers to come. This is Hiker Alan, and he just has a single Geodude. So watch this. I use Dig, Magnitude 8 does more than half, and it does less than half to it. Yeah, I am not surviving this, am I? And the answer is no. I actually lost to a hiker with a single ass Geodude. So yes, this is a huge problem. But however, the AI tends to not be the smartest creature in the world, and I end up winning the next battle with only like 9 damage taken. This was very easy this time, so I'm just gonna have to rely on the AI being dumber than a box of rocks. The next hiker has 2 Onix and a Geodude. Luckily the Onix don't have Magnitude, so they aren't actually that threatening, and each of them can be taken down with 2 or 3 digs. But the final Geodude does have Magnitude, so I use Dig, I end up going underground, get hit with Magnitude, Dig does more than half, and then I go underground again, and I am dead. On the next attempt, when I make it back to the Geodude, I use 1 defense curl to try and protect myself at least a little bit from Magnitude, but the Geodude never once went for Magnitude. Told you I was going to have to win these fights just from the AI being dumber than a box of rocks. And now we at least get a little break from all the hikers because the next trainer is Picnicker Sophia. She starts with a Jigglypuff and a Meowth, and luckily her team is barely hard at all. But however, after her is the last hiker. This one is normally the self-destructing hiker of Gen 1, but instead, this guy has all magnitudes. So I make sure to save beforehand in case the worst case scenario happens. Alright, on the second attempt, I make it to the Graveler with 58 health left. I go for a dig, it does a half. Luckily it went for magnitude when I was above ground, so it did hardly anything. Although the defense curls are making it do less damage. But luckily, when I'm underground, I never once got hit, and I ended up winning this fight. I know there's one more trainer in here, but I'm not going to talk about it. We've been in this section way too long. I leave Rock Tunnel, heal at the Lavender Pokemon Center, and then the first thing I do is take on Rival 4. I never take on this fight because I like to come back here when I have the Sylph Scope, but since I'm going to be learning Sketch soon and I end up learning it over Thundershock, at least that's what my notes said, but I later changed my mind, I decided at the time I should probably fight Rival 4 while I still have Thundershock. So let's see how this battle goes. He starts off with Pidgeotto like before. Will Thundershock still do more than half? Not exactly. Could be a range, who knows. But then I unfortunately get hit with a Sand Attack. Thundershock does not KO it. I get hit with more moves until I knock it out. Next up is the level 22 Gyarados. Thundershock does around half, and then Thrash does not do that much damage to me, but the second one actually crits me, so I decide not to waste my time and I just reset. On the next attempt, I make it back to the Gyarados with no sand attacks, and then next up is his Execute. I start off by using a Dig, but I ended up realizing after it came back up that grass actually resists ground. Like, here's the thing, with grass and bug types, I always forget what they resist. I mean, the obvious ones like water and like bug resist grass, but the other ones are a bit hard for me to remember. I'll learn eventually. And I basically don't really have a good answer for the Execute besides Thundershock, so I unfortunately get a loss. After that, I decided, forget it, I'll just try this guy another time. And I make it all the way to Celadon City, where I heal at the Pokemon Center, get the tea, and go do the Rocket Hideout. I basically just do the minimum amount of stuff required in here since I'm pretty much a high level at this point, so now I have to take on the 2 Rocket Guards. Sometimes in runs I find them actually harder than Giovanni, but right now all 3 of them are going to be hard. Starting with the guy on the left, he starts with a Sandshrew. For some reason I decide to go with Tackle, but then I get hit with a Sand Attack and then poisoned with Poison Sting, so things aren't looking too good, especially since the next Pokemon is Sand Slash. So my tackles are doing hardly anything. I'm getting hit with more sand attacks. I mean, I could have used Dig, but when it comes to a turn-by-turn basis, tackle's going to end up doing more damage just because Dig is a 2-turn move. But unfortunately on this attempt, I get a reset. On the next attempt, I make it back to the Sand Slash without any sand attacks. I decide to go for Dig to see if it'd be better, and the answer is probably not really. But the reason I'm going for it anyway is because it might help with avoiding sand attacks. But after a little bit, I decide to just go all on in on the tackle train, and I get it to very low health, and I knock it out, and I get to level 40. Alright, now is just an Ekans. I get hit with Intimidate, so my attack is going to be even worse than it already is, and it can't even KO an Ekans. Like, that's just bad. But luckily the next tackle actually hits, so that's 1 guard down. The second guard has the same team as the first one, just reversed. He has an Ekans, Sandshrew, and Arbok. So this guy, in my opinion, is going to be easier. On turn 1, I try to knock out the Ekans in 1 hit, but it lives on red health, but luckily a tackle takes it out. Next up is the Sandshrew. I just go for tackle all the way, just because it's just going to do more damage on a turn-by-turn basis, but on the second attack, I decide to be a bit creative and use Dig, and I get a lucky critical hit, and then now is the Arbok. I go for Dig, it misses a bite, Dig does less than half, and I unfortunately get hit with Glare. So this is going to be a huge problem when I'm relying on Dig. But luckily I defeat this guy quite easily. So now with the 2 guards taken out, I just have Giovanni to go, so let's see how it goes. Giovanni sends out his Onix, and I start off by using a Dig, and it does around a third, probably more than a third. But luckily when I'm underground, his Onix really can't do anything about it, and neither can his Rhyhorn. Although it would be a pretty big deal if it landed a Scary Face, which unfortunately it does. It does try to go for it some more, but luckily it only happens when I'm underground, so I'm only at -2 speed going into the Kangaskhan. But that doesn't matter, it's still gonna outspeed me. And then on the Kangaskhan I go for a Dig, and it does barely anything, and a critical hit Mega Punch takes me out for the win. On the second attempt, when I get back to the Kangaskhan, I decide instead to go for a Defense Curl. But then unfortunately Fake Out causes me to flinch, so I instead just decide to start spamming Dig, because the thing with Giovanni, he tends to act randomly when all of his moves can hit you, so I pretty much just spam Dig and hope for the best, and I do get it to low red health because I did get a Mega Punch miss. Unluckily for me, Bite never misses and I get knocked out again. I decide instead of trying again, I'm going to get Sketch again at level 41 to get a better move to deal with Giovanni. And then I realize something. The trainer that I want to copy a move off of, I don't have access to yet. So me training 1 level to get Sketch was honestly a waste of time. So I should probably just stick this fight through to the end. But I will mention, I did use a few rare candies to get me to level 45. Here's the thing, since I'm in the fast level up group, and my minimum level for the champion is not as high as you may think it's going to be, I can get away with using early rare candies. So on my first attempt of being level 45, I make it to the Kangaskhan at 80 HP left, no scary faces, thank God. And then at the very last minute, I get hit with a Mega Punch. Like, that thing was not paralyzed a single time. Yet if that was me, I would have been parried like 4 times in a row. That is such bullcrap. Okay, you can probably tell why I was holding off this run for a long time. Smeargle has a lot of potential, but it's just so irritating to work with. Like, common trainers, or even roadblocks that are mandatory in the story who generally aren't hard, like Giovanni 1, are just an absolute freaking nightmare. But thankfully, 24 resets into the run, I managed to get the Kangaskhan to miss enough moves, get paralyzed, and I can actually defeat his team. And now with the Silph Scope, I can go finish the rest of Pokemon Tower, send the Marowak to hell where the Smeargle will go eventually because I'm getting that tired of it, and then Mr. Fuji gives me the Poke Flute. And now I can go to Celadon City, go on to Cycling Road, accidentally bump into a biker with Machop who almost kills me, and then I can get the rare candy and the max elixir, and then I can go into the Safari Zone, where I get the normal items I pretty much always get, and then at the very end, I get the HM for Surf. Unfortunately, I cannot use this move yet because I need Koga's gym badge, but we're not going to be fighting him just yet though, because here's the thing. After we finish the Safari Zone, we can either do Erica, Koga, or Silphco. And what I decide to do first is actually none of those, because right now, I still have Sketch on my moveset. I know what I'm going to get, but I'm going to need to fight my way to it. It's a trainer on the long route from Lavender to Fuchsia. The routes 12, 13, 14, and 15. It's going to be one particular trainer I need to sketch a move off of. And what trainer will that be? It is Beauty Lola on Route 13. It's these two beauties that stand right next to each other on Route 13. She's the one on the right. Her Pikachu is the earliest instance of the game of a Pokemon having Thunderbolt. So I'm definitely going to want this move. What I'm basically doing is just using a weak tackle and hoping it just uses it. But after a while, I realized my rule set, I can only allow pokeballs in battle. So I end up using pokeballs to just stall out turns, and then when the Pikachu finally uses Thunderbolt, I can actually sketch the move, defeat her team quite quickly, or just black out because I was paralyzed, but either way I get to keep Thunderbolt, so moving on. And now I need to get to level 51 to learn Sketch again, because I'm going to be sketching another really useful move, but I need a few more levels to get to it, so I do some Fisherman Elliot training, which actually isn't that bad because I'm in the fast level up group, and I have frickin' Thunderbolt. So of course this is going to make this fight quite easy. So once I get to the level I need to, I go to Silphco and I take on Rival 5. Believe it or not, Rival 5 is going to be one of the hardest fights in the entire run, and that's going to be while I have Sketch, because the move I need is on his team. It's going to be Calm Mind off his Alakazam. You may be thinking, oh, but Sabrina gives the TM for Calm Mind. Why don't you just steal that? All of her Pokemon know that move. Well, yes, that's true, but here's the thing. Sabrina is blocked behind Rival 5. This is the only way before Sabrina I can get this move, and I pretty much need this move to take on Rival 5 and Giovanni without massive overleveling. So I defeat the Pidgeot and the Gyarados as quick as I can with Thunderbolt, and the first time I make it to Alakazam is when I'm level 55 after doing some training and using some rare candies. So now I need to get this thing to use Calm Mind. So on turn 1 I go for Tackle, it goes for Calm Mind, and I'm paralyzed. And here's the thing I realized. I am now slower than the Alakazam because of paralysis. So if I go for Sketch, I would have to hope that the Alakazam uses Calm Mind. But if I'm outspeeding it, it's quite fine. But if I'm slower, it's going to be an issue. So yeah, not only I need to sketch a move when most of the time I'm going to be slower than it thanks to Stun Spore paralysis, Rival 5 on this team actually sends it out last. So this is going to be quite a while. 41 resets in is the next time I make it to the Alakazam, and I am paralyzed. So I go for a turn 1 sketch, and unfortunately it used Future Sight, so that's another loss. I'm just getting a lot of really bad luck right now. So on the next attempt, I get to the Alakazam paralyzed. It goes for Future Sight and not Calm Mind because it detected a kill. So I need to be at high enough HP to where the AI will not go for Future Sight, which is going to be a difficult thing to accomplish. But I've got some good news, folks. On the very next attempt, I get back to the Alakazam at high enough health to where it goes for a turn 1 Calm Mind, and I finally sketch the move. Oh my god, that took so long. I mean, at this point, I'm literally not going to be able to take it out, so I just take the blackout and just get out of here. It does take a while though, because this thing's only attack is Future Sight, and believe it or not, when I'm on the Paris, it actually ran out of Future Sight, so it's literally going through all of its other moves. And the only way I was able to black out was actually it using Struggle, which I honestly find quite hilarious. So now with Calm Mind on my moveset at the start of the battle, I can actually set up on the Pidgeot to +3. If you go higher than 3, the AI will prioritize moves like Roar or Whirlwind to force a switch, so I can't get too cocky here. And then even though I'm paralyzed, I don't need to copy moves anymore, and I can take out his entire team, even the Alakazam. We're not in the clear yet though. We still have to take on this Rocket Grunt before Giovanni, and he has a Cubone and a Marowak, so I can only use Dig. And their attacks are going to do a somewhat decent amount of damage, but the unfortunate thing is that his Cubone and Marowak have Focus Energy, so their chances of a critical hit will go up, because their normal hits don't do that much, but if they get a crit, it's going to be quite bad. And unfortunately on the first attempt, that's what happens. I get crit and I get knocked out. This does take another try, but I do win in the end. Now let's go face Giovanni. He sends out Nidorino, and I start with a Calm Mind, and the whole plan is basically just to set up. I get to +2 and knock out the Nidorino with Thunderbolt, and then on the Nidoqueen, the whole plan is just to use Dig because it is weak to Dig. It does around a quarter, but unfortunately I underestimated just how bad Body Slam and Double Kick will be, so I get an immediate loss. I realized after that first battle that my strategy with Giovanni just wasn't going to work, but however, I'm just going to move things around. When I got Sketch again at level 61, I was going to sketch a water type move to help with the final Giovanni battle, so I'm just going to teach it right away just to get it on Giovanni too. But in order to do that, I need Koga's badge. But here's the thing, I also didn't fight Erica either. I'm going to fight her so I can use strength outside of battle, so I can get 1 extra rare candy in the Warden's house. So why don't we go check out Erica. This whole fight is basically pretty easy. If you set up 2 Calm Minds, you can literally just knock everything out with Thunderbolt. The Vileplume though does live because it is kinda tanky, but this thing is doing hardly any damage and I win on the first try. And now that I got the rare candy, I am still level 58, but I still need to get to level 60 so I can use 1 rare candy to get to level 61 to get Sketch again. So I just fight some trainers on the routes surrounding Fuchsia City, and then once I get to level 60, I use 1 rare candy to get to 61, teach Sketch over Tackle, and then I can go fight Koga. He starts off with Coughing, and the first thing I do is go for Calm Mind, which isn't a good idea on the Coughing because that thing can use Toxic or Smokescreen. I do have a Pecha Berry for this, but I didn't equip it on the first battle. Oops. But luckily on the first turn it just goes for Sludge. And then 1 Thunderbolt takes out the Coughing, and then on the Muck I use another Calm Mind because I predicted it was just going to use Minimize like it usually does. But unfortunately on +2, it is not enough for the looks like consistent 2 hit. So I end up missing a lot of moves, but luckily I get a critical hit on the Muck, so I can take it out quite fine. The third Coughing is a knockout with Thunderbolt, and now for the Wheezing. Thunderbolt does way more than half because it is nowhere near as defensive as Muck, so I am able to defeat Koga pretty easily. And now, with Koga's badge, which allows me to use Surf outside of battle. I'm not going to sketch the water move just yet. There's 1 more move I need on the mainland before going down to Cinnabar Island. I'm going to be sketching a move off of Lass Chrissy on Route 4. She's the only trainer on Route 4, and the only way to get to her is with Surf. She has a team of Paris and Parasect, and they're the only Pokemon in the main story who know Spore. So I equip a Chesto Berry, I let the Paris use Spore, I immediately wake up, and then I sketch this very broken move. For those of you who don't know, Spore is one of the most broken moves in all of Pokemon. It's a 100% accurate sleep move, but the way it's nerfed is that normally the only Pokemon who get it are very, very slow, like Amoonguss, Parasect, Breloom, Pokemon like that, but Smeargle is really, really fast. And let me show you all on the Blaine battle on Cinnabar Island. When I begin the fight, the whole plan is to use Spore on Growlithe and then set up to +6 with Calm Mind. That's going to be the only way to knock out his following Pokemon. However, his Growlithe does have Roar, so if I set myself up too high, when it wakes up from Spore, there's a pretty high chance it's going to go for it. So I'm just going to have to get lucky with sleep, or the fact that it just won't bother going for it. But instead what I choose to do is I knock it out after 3 Calm Minds, and then on the Ponyta, since it's doing virtually no damage, I set up to +5, and then on the Rapidash, I put it to sleep. Blaine uses a full heal, which is kind of a better item than a super potion, and then on his final Arcanine, I use 1 Spore to put it to sleep, and then I go for 1 Thunderbolt, it puts it in red. Blaine uses a Hyper Potion, so he has potions and full heals, huh? That's interesting. And then after he runs out of Hyper Potions, I eventually take him out for the win. After I finish Blaine, Bill asks me if I want to go to the Sevi Islands, and I say yes. Normally I like to come here for a bonus rare candy, but I'm actually going to be skipping it. The reason I'm coming here is so I have access to the Move Relearner. So I go to the Move Relearner on Island 2, give him some mushrooms, and I have him teach Sketch over Dig. So now with Sketch, I can now get a water type move on my moveset to help with Giovanni 2 and Giovanni 3. And where is there a good Pokemon with a water move that's easy to get to? Well, on the Bond Bridge right here on 3 Island, there is this little tuber girl named Alexis, and she has a Staryu with Bubble Beam. So I'm going to sketch Bubble Beam. I couldn't find any trainers outside of the Elite Four with Surf, so Bubble Beam was my best option. And luckily it wasn't someone too far out of the way. But here's something funny, during the Tuber Alexis fight, when I copy Bubble Beam, it goes for Camouflage and it turns itself into a ground type because we're on a beach, and my only move was Thunderbolt, but luckily I had just copied Bubble Beam, so I just used that for the one hit. But still, that was kinda funny. And after rescuing Lost Tell and helping Bill and Celio, I can get back to the mainland, and then I fly to Saffron City and go finish off Giovanni. Here's the thing though, with Bubble Beam for his Nidoqueen and Rhyhorn, this whole fight is just way easier. And with Giovanni down, I now have access to Sabrina. She is going to be the last gym leader before our final one. So let's get this show on the road. She starts off with her Kadabra, and this gym battle is going to be the same as all the other ones. I put it to sleep with Spore, set up some Calm Minds, except her Pokemon are all special attackers, so they're pretty much going to do nothing against me since I'm boosting my special attack and my special defense at the same time. So once I'm at +6, I can just spam Thunderbolt on everything for the easy win. And now, there is just one gym leader left. Let us take on Giovanni one last time. He starts off with Rhyhorn, and the first thing I do is put it to sleep with Spore, and now I just set up some Calm Minds. I have to be real careful if it wakes up because it can use Scary Face. But fortunately for me, his Pokemon are generally quite slow, and my Smeargle is absolutely lightning fast. So one Scary Face probably won't be the end of the world, but I'm sure 2 of them would be an issue. Unfortunately though, I don't outspeed the Dugtrio, and I mean the worst thing it can do is use a Mud Slap and lower my accuracy, but it's just going to use the move that does the most damage anyway, so it only went for Earthquake. And then I win on the first try and complete the gym challenge. But we're not done yet. We still have one more trainer between us and the Elite Four, and that is Rival 6. He starts off with his Pidgeot, but here's the interesting thing. This Pidgeot does not have Whirlwind or Sand Attack, so this Pidgeot here is actually the least threatening one. Although on the champion fight, it will get both of those moves back, as well as keeping Feather Dance, so that's going to be quite bad. But luckily I take out the Pidgeot quite nicely. The Rhyhorn after it's a one-hit with Bubble Beam. On the Execute right after it, I just two-hit it with Thunderbolt because that was my best option. And on the Alakazam, I put it to sleep, and then I use 2 Thunderbolts to take it out. And his last 2 Pokemon are Gyarados and Charizard, which are both going to be obviously one-hits with Thunderbolt. There's going to be nothing in my way from here until Pokemon League, so I can arrive at the Indigo Plateau, heal at the center, buy some full restores, but we are not going to go in just yet. We need one more move. So I actually go fly to Vermilion City, take the boat to Sebi Island 2, and then I have the move relearner reteach Sketch over Bubble Beam. We only needed Bubble Beam just for those temporary fights. The move we're going to copy is actually on someone in the Elite Four. It's actually going to help with much later in the Elite Four fights. So why don't we just get started with the Elite Four, shall we? Let's do this shit. On Lorelei, she starts with Dewgong, and I basically just set up Calm Mind, and then on turn 1, it uses Ice Beam, and that's when I sketch. So my final moveset is going to be Thunderbolt, Calm Mind, Spore, and Ice Beam. These 4 moves right here are going to be the main key to destroying the entire Elite Four. But the Dewgong does crit me with Ice Beam, so each of these Elite Four battles take me a few tries, so I'll just skip to the winning attempt. Luckily, Lorelei did not take that many attempts, and once I'm at +6, even though I don't knock out her Lapras in one hit, I did use Spore on it, so it's not that big a deal, but I do use Spore on the Jinx because it has really high special defense. But other than the Lapras and the Jinx, her Pokemon were quite easy once I set up. The next Elite Four member is the probably hardest one in the entire Elite Four, Bruno. That's because my one weakness are fighting type moves. I mean, I lose a lot of attempts here because I get hit with Rock Tomb too many times, lowering my speed. I get hit with fighting type moves like Sky Uppercut. So this definitely takes a lot of tries, so let me just skip ahead really quick for you. It didn't take me that long, luckily. I was only 57 attempts in. I get good enough luck with Rock Tomb only hitting once, so I outspeed pretty much everything on his team, and I get to +6 with Calm Mind, so that's pretty good. On Agatha, her first Gengar can be quite trolly with Confuse Ray, Toxic, and Double Team. I do have a Lumberry for this fight, but I forgot to equip it like I seem to do frequently throughout this run, like just forget to equip anything. Anyway, once I keep putting it to sleep, and then I set up to +6 in Calm Mind. Once I set up to +5 in Calm Mind, I go for Thunderbolt and it lives, and then during the one turn Agatha uses a full restore, I use another Calm Mind, Thunderbolt misses, it misses again, and it misses again, and it misses Toxic, and then I finally hit it with Thunderbolt and it somehow lives. I don't know how, but then I get badly poisoned, I just keep missing my moves, and this is just going to be ridiculous, so let me just reset. On the next attempt, I do get to +6, and I avoid getting poisoned, and I can take out Agatha's Pokemon very easily. And at a pretty nice level, I might add. On Elite Four member Lance, I put his Gyarados to sleep, and then I began setting up my Calm Minds, but unfortunately I get hit too many times and that's a loss. On the next attempt, I managed to get to +6 while the Gyarados was asleep, and I can take it out with Thunderbolt, and then next up is the Aerodactyl. I put it to sleep with Spore because I wasn't sure if I could knock it out with a Thunderbolt, but still better safe than sorry. And then on his following dragons, they're all one hits with Ice Beam. So now we just have one trainer left to go, the champion. Let's do this. He starts off by sending out his Pidgeot, and what I do is just do what I did with every other Elite Four member. I just put it to sleep and just set up my Calm Minds. Unfortunately, it did wake up and it tried to use Whirlwind, but luckily Whirlwind does not have perfect accuracy, so I was able to avoid it, and once I'm set up, I can take out his Pidgeot, Alakazam, Exeggutor, Rhydon, Gyarados, and Charizard, and then once all that's done, I get a final time of 3 hours, 40 minutes, and 53 seconds, with 59 resets at level 72, and a game time at the Hall of Fame of 7 hours and 36 minutes. You know, this run really did start to pick up near the end when I get some really good moves, but at the very start, when my moves were just absolute piles of dog crap, like, it was just awful to use. But I will say, this went way better than Shedinja did, and definitely leagues better than Wobbuffet. If we go back to our leaderboards, Smeargle actually did comparatively well to Pokemon like Poochyena and Shroomish. It got very similar game times, although Poochyena and Shroomish had much higher game times because their strategies for battles were just very, very long. Like, Shroomish had to rely on Spore strategies, but it was really, really slow, so it wasn't as good as you may think. I had to be level 100 for the champion because of that damn Charizard. And Poochyena in general is just quite bad. But with all that out of the way, I really hope you enjoyed this run. However, during our Steve M Plays collaboration, I did 2 runs and lost twice. So I still have one more punishment to do, which I will do later in the year. It will be Pokemon Leafgreen Plusle versus Minun. Anyway, please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more. You can also follow my socials if you want to, or support me on Patreon or YouTube memberships. If not, just leave a like, fine by me. I will see you all next time.